This is Saskia, and this is Note to Self, your weekly dose of everything that's simply too long to text. Consider this your personal invitation into my inner circle, where I share my thoughts, feelings, and quiet reflections that usually live inside my Notes app. Thanks for joining me. Hello, Note to Self. Welcome back for another episode. I'm in such high spirits because I had my best friend visiting me in New York over the weekend, which was just so magical. You know that feeling you get after just spending such quality time with one of your favorite people in the world and just how much joy this woman brings me. And she moved to she didn't move to New York, but she's moved to Miami now. And she was one of the first series of goodbyes I've had to make in the last few months. But in the podcast, I had mentioned a few episodes ago, it must have been earlier this year, that one of my really good friends was moving, and just this grief I was feeling around, having lots of friends leave the city. And one of my kind of traditions with this friend is that we always go to see our favorite DJ Blondish play every year. And she had listened to the episode and she immediately texted me being like, oh my God, I'm not going to miss the tradition. I'm booking flights to Miami and we're going to Blondish. So it was very, very sweet. And I was so excited for her to be there. So yeah, she came down over the weekend. We just had the loveliest weekend together. Just felt, like I said, your cup was so full and it was just so lovely to see her. We, had a beautiful dinner the first night, and it was one of those weekends where everything just kind of fell into place. Like I had an organized dinner and then a reservation popped up at this restaurant I'd been wanting to try in my neighborhood that's always booked out. And when we got there, the server or I think it was actually one of the owners, he had said, you guys were one of the last people to get a reservation. We closed reservations at 5:30 and your reservation came in at 5:29, and it was this random one that popped up. So I just felt like it was very meant to be, very kismet. And we had a lovely brunch on Saturday with another girlfriend who lives in the city. And then her and I went on Saturday night to see Blondish. And this has been the sixth time I've seen Blondish, which is kind of crazy. And her and I have seen her 5 times together. Blondish is a DJ. She's from Montreal. I believe she's from Montreal. She's Canadian though. And we first saw her, it was in 2022. It was our company retreat. So we had organized for our company. Her and I were actually part of the organizing committee to do our retreat in Sicily. So we have employees all over the world. So we brought in our employees from 40 different countries, and we all went to Sicily for this week-long company retreat. And I was across activities and entertainment. So we ended up booking Blondish because she's really big in the crypto space, and the company I work for is a crypto company. And she was familiar with our product and she was, super excited. So we flew her out to Sicily, and Blondish headlined our company retreat on the final night, which was just a really fun party, and it was awesome. And that was my first time seeing her live. And that summer I had fallen in love with her music, but I had never seen her live before. And I remember we had so many DJs at the company who were just employees that we ended up having 3 different stages at this huge resort in Sicily, where throughout the week all different employees were playing. It was like we were at a mini music festival. It was so funny. And then Blondish was the headliner. And I'll never forget this one stage, was kind of on this peninsula, and it looked out to the whole Mediterranean Sea. It was so gorgeous. And one of my good friends, who's also the friend who visited's partner, he's a DJ and he's great, and his sets were always everyone's favorites, and we'd all be going up to that stage at night, and it would look out to the Med, and you'd see the moon, and it was just such fun music. And that was a really fun week. And I have met 4 of my closest friends from that company, 5 if you count someone I met through one of those people. So it is a very special place, and I have very fun memories with a lot of these people who are still very important to me in my life, aka my best friend who came to visit. Circling back to Blondish. So we fell in love with her that summer, and we just loved how rhythmic her music was, and it's so fun to dance to. I just feel like it's a very grounding type of DJ. It's hard to describe. Blondish says she plays energy. She doesn't play music, which I think is so sick because I really have always felt, my friend and I have shared this a lot, that she taps into a different frequency. I feel like she's tapping into something else, and I think she's channeling this energy, and you feel it in the crowd. There's just so much joy, and I just really love her shows. So the next year after our retreat was 2023, and Blondish does these shows called Abracadabra, which is her like touring show. And this was our first Abracadabra year. So it was 2023. And now we went to our show after the retreat, having fallen in love with her. You know, fast forward to 2026. This is now our fourth Abracadabra show. We've gone every year since. And last year we decided to treat ourselves to VIP tickets, which was so worth it and so much fun. And it was just my girlfriend and I. Some years we go in groups, other times we haven't. But the VIP last year was so fun because you had this backstage area. There was a little bar set up and couches. And it was just like a little mini club almost. And then you walked around to the back of the DJ booth where like there was a second level of tickets where you could be behind the DJ booth. But what we really loved about it, because we really like to see the actual show, was there's these elevated platforms that are at this specific venue. It's called Industry City, and it's in Brooklyn. And they have these little elevated platforms, and they barricaded off a little area of it for the VIP ticket holders. And you could stand up there, and you got like the best view of the show, but you still had room to dance. Because the one thing I really dislike about this venue is it's between two really tall buildings, so it feels very futuristic, but because it's just a really long, skinny venue, you kind of get this like sardine feeling. It's not like some of the other venues that are more spread out. So sometimes you're just so squished in. That's why we haven't done general tickets the last 2 years. But these elevated platforms, most of it is left for GA, but it's really fun just to have your little spot where you can still dance. So this year we were like, no brainer. We're clearly getting VIP again. And, you know, it's our thing. No one else was invited. And we walk back to the VIP area, and it was just so sad. I cannot tell you guys. It's just this like blank, very brightly lit area, like no couches or like warmth. There wasn't like a vibe. There was, I remember last year we had like private bathrooms. God, I sound so bougie, but there was no private bathrooms, which I was pissed about. But to be honest, you didn't really need them. It was fine. But really, the part that we were the most annoyed about, because we walk in confidently. We're like, we've got this. We've done this before. We know exactly where we're going to go. We walk confidently through the back, down the side, getting ready to get to our little elevated side stage. We're so excited. And then we get there, and there's like a barricade, and there's all these tables. And we were like, what the fuck? We're like, can we go in there? They're like, no, that's for VIP table service. This is when I fucking hate New York. VIP table service? Like, please. This is not the venue for that. So essentially what they had done was, they turned where our tickets last year got us into all this table service area. And then the area that we had access to was this super weird elevated platform that I remember seeing last year, but no one was on it. So I just assumed they might have like changed it or something. But it's like you've got the DJ, and then you have the people right behind the DJ that are like in her little area. Then you've got the more VIP tables, and then you have this weird platform that's not even that elevated. Like you literally are in level with everyone. You can't see anything. There's no lights. It's super dark and kind of weird. It's pretty big, but there's only like 10 to 20 people standing there. So there's no like crowd energy. It's just a very bizarre vibe. And thankfully they had speakers, so you still got like sound because the speakers were pointing back and also forward to the main crowd. But it was just so bizarre. And my friend and I were just crying from laughter because we were like, this is what we get when we try and have nice things. Because I cannot tell you how comically bad it was, the setup. And our other friend was in Europe, and she had treated herself to her favorite DJ and got VIP. And her VIP was sick, and she was sending us pictures of it. And we're like, this is ours. And you literally just like can't see anything. But we ended up squeezing down the side in some way, and we were kind of in this dead zone between speakers, but at least you could like feel the crowd's energy a bit and still have room to dance and, see the show a little bit better. So yeah, I gotta say, we weren't super impressed with that. But tell you what, Blondish made it better. And we kept saying, it's all about the music, honestly. Nothing else matters. The rest are just additional add-ons. And our ticket clearly didn't pay for those, but the music was sick. And it probably is one of my favorite sets she's ever done. And she did these 2 remixes that have just stuck with me. So one was she remixed Pink Floyd's Another Brick in the Wall, which was so fucking cool because I've not heard that when I've been like out at a rave before. And it was so fucking cool to have that another brick in the wall. It was just like so fun. I fucking love that song. And then crowd pleaser, because she knew she had a millennial crowd, was she remixed Sweet Disposition by Temper Trap. Everyone fucking lost it. And it's such an iconic millennial song. My fellow New Zealand neighbors love the Kiwis. I love Temper Trap. They were one of the first bands I saw at a festival when I was like 18, and I'll never forget them. They did this sick song from their album that's called The Drumming Song, and it's literally just it is a drumming song. That's what it is. And I remember they secretly put like water on the drum tops, and then all of a sudden when they were hitting the drums, all this water went up into the air. It's like etched into my brain as one of my favorite moments seeing a band live. They are incredible. So her remixing that, just everyone around, you could tell were just so into the music. And it was a really incredible set. So I definitely want to try and see her again this year at maybe not this venue. But I ended up doing the most Karen thing ever. I was like, I'm going to send a letter of concern. So after the show, I still have the contact details of her team, who every now and then we've messaged about different things in the crypto space that they're working on. So I messaged her to her manager with a very nice email. I was like, I'm a big fan. My 6th show. This is likely nothing to do with you guys, but I just think I know you guys really care about the fan experience, and Blondish really does. She always speaks about that. So I wanted to give some like friendly feedback on what our experience was like. And I listed everything out about what happened. And I was like, ultimately, like, I will always support her. I love her music. She's incredible. It was one of my favorite sets I've seen. I said how those 2 songs are living in my head. And now I have a call with him this week because we need to talk about some work stuff. I was like, free tickets, man, please. But no, felt good. Hey, just like supporting the community, putting the good word out there for the other people that had those tickets and might have been let down. But no, such a good show. And I keep coming back to just how rhythmic her music is. And she just includes such interesting beats and just cool music from all around the world. It's always really unexpected. I mean, one of her most popular songs is this song called Sete, which is actually a remix of a super popular West African Malayan song. And it's by Amadou and Mariam. And she remixed this. And I had heard that it's really popular in West Africa, this song. And like so many people apparently when they heard it, and because this song became huge, felt so seen and visible. Because I watched all these interviews on social about it. But it's such soulful music. And I just love that she finds interesting people to work with. It's kind of like Fred again. He works with very like artists from all around the world. And I've always loved that as well. Imagine if Fred again and Blondish did a back-to-back one time. Oh my God, guys, I'm going to manifest it. It probably wouldn't happen. Their music's really different. But I wish I need to rewatch this of my face just then because I felt myself just get so excited about that happening. Anyways, moving on. Heart is full. Great weekend. And it's just so special when you get to spend time with a friend who just really sees the depths of who you are. And, we've worked together for so many years. We've been close friends for so many years, traveled together. We've met each other's families. Like, she is just one of the most incredible people in my life. And I'm so excited for her next chapter in Miami to go down and spend more time with her and just love her. And I love her partner. They're the best. But that's not the topic today, me just raving about my friend. The topic today is also, again, my pop culture pick of the week, which is kind of actually the wrong thing to say because it's not really my pick of the week. It's more my not pick of the week. And I have a lot of qualms about it. But here we go. Welcome to Pop Culture Pick of the Week. One day the jingle's going to come together. I'm actually debating finding some music for it. We're workshopping it, guys. Stick with me. So today we'll be discussing I was doing my fingers to do the drum roll and then realized I was making no sound. So anyone who's just listening to this without sound will be like, what's happening? We're discussing, here we go, circling back, Bachelor Nation and the idealized version of relationships shown to us on TV in this franchise. So I'm settling in. So I've recently been rewatching the old season of The Bachelorette, specifically the Gabby Windy and Rachel Rakia, I think is her last name, season 19. And that aired in 2022. And no spoilers because I haven't finished it yet, guys. So please don't spoil it for me, which is literally insane because it came out so many years ago. And Gabby has also since then become out as a lesbian and is married. So I just don't want to Google who she ends up with and then clearly doesn't end up with long term. But look, I haven't watched this franchise in probably 10 years. And Disney was feeding it to me. I needed a reality show and I popped it on. And really, the only reason I watched it is because I love Gabby Windy. And I was just so intrigued to see her prior to her, obviously coming out of as a lesbian. And she's now married to a woman, an amazing comedian and actor called Robbie Hoffman, who I love. But I never knew about Gabby until she was in The Traitors. And now I listen to her podcast and I'm obsessed with her sense of fashion and just her general vibe. So I was really keen to see what she was like back then. Little did I know starting this show again that it would give me so much goddamn anger. I have a lot of thoughts about this franchise and why I actually think it's a really dangerous show to have on television. Because here's the thing, I used to watch this show religiously. The Australian version, I watched the first 4 seasons when it started. And then when I moved here, I would watch the US one. Honestly, I watched it until Love Island came on and then Love Island replaced this obsession. But I remember I genuinely believed this was what falling in love looked like. I thought this was the dream scenario, the fantasy, the fairy tale romance. But one clarification is I do always remember watching these shows being weird that they get engaged at the end of this because they have not known each other very long. That's why I always liked Love Island because they don't get engaged at the end of the show. But anyways, so it was more the way they fell in love and the fairy tale and the romance. So all of that just felt so, I don't know, romantic. And I think that I felt the love in that was real and that falling in love was meant to be just this overwhelming and intense feeling like the show. And my dating life proceeded to reflect this all throughout my 20s. So I was often attracted to intensity and that overwhelming feeling that I really thought was love, but it's actually a lot of the time just anxiety. So rewatching it now as an adult who's done a lot of work on myself and my relationship, I'm genuinely shocked at what this show has been teaching people about love. And that's why I just have so many feelings on it. So my topic today are my hot takes on Bachelor Nation and why I think the franchise is bullshit. For those who don't know, Bachelor Nation, which is clearly been living under a rock, but who knows, I'll give you a little rundown, is the overarching company for a series of reality TV shows. There's multiple spin-offs, more than I even realized. I knew that obviously there's The Bachelor, then there was The Bachelorette. Those are the 2 longest running still around. Then there's Bachelor in Paradise, which I like to think of their Love Island version. And then they started the Golden Bachelor and the Golden Bachelorette, which are the Bachelor and Bachelorette's golden. They're older. I think they're in their 50s or 60s, maybe 70s. I don't know. They're old. 50s is not old though. I don't think they should be golden. They must be 60s or 70s. Anyways, little do I know, they have even more spinoffs. Listen to what these other spinoffs are. Bachelor Mansion Takeover. Not sure what that is. Bachelor Pad. The Bachelor Listen to Your Heart. That one is my all-time fave. I need to know what that show is about. And the Bachelor Winter Games. Again, how these things are spinning up and who's watching them is wild. So what in the world are all these additional shows? Just, I could not tell you. But some interesting stats about kind of the show as a whole, really The Bachelor and Bachelorette is what we're talking about here. So it has a really low success rate, which I already kind of knew. But across a combined 49 seasons of The Bachelor and Bachelorette, this was up until 2024, only about 11 couples are still together long term. So it works out to be a 20% overall success rate. What's also super interesting is that apparently The Bachelorette has significantly outperformed The Bachelor in terms of success, having a 30% marriage rate for the Bachelorette couples versus 11% for Bachelor couples. And if that isn't saying something, I don't know what is. Because men clearly do not know how to commit. And these guys that are on this show tend to be very wishy-washy. So it's not necessarily surprising to me that the Bachelors have a much less marriage rate than the Bachelorettes. And I also think women are just more discernment. They have more discernment. There we go. than the men. Oh gosh. I find like a lot of the guys on the show tend to be very avoidant. So thought that was interesting. Also, another interesting fact is Bachelor in Paradise has a roughly 33% success rate for couples who've left together. So that's nearly double the rate of the main show. And I think that's because it's a far more quote unquote natural environment. It's still not natural, but like they spend way more time with each other. And it's more, again, like the Love Island type situation. And as a big Love Island fan, I was pretty sure Love Island would have a higher success rate. I've definitely always boasted that. It sadly does not when I looked into it. Apparently, it's only 10% across the UK and US shows, which I thought was wild. To be fair, they also haven't had as many, so that might affect the stats too. But I also think they're very, very young in Love Island. They're, I think, skew to be younger than those on The Bachelor and Bachelorette. And I often wonder, I feel like the seasons where they have like the All-Star season that the UK has started, where they're bringing back old folks or like old contestants from Love Island and they go on it again, they tend to skew older. And I've noticed that a few couples from those seasons are still together. But anyways, I thought maybe it would be a higher success rate because, again, they just spend more time with each other. But really, the highest success rate, which again is not surprising, is Love is Blind. And I was not surprised by that in the slightest. They by far get to know each other the most because they go from dating to, on a vacation to living together in their, a shared apartment in where they're from. I think the pods, albeit I have a lot of issues with them, they do, create deeper conversations. It just seems like it's a bit more like their lives enmesh rather than these like very fantastical situations that the Bachelor and Bachelorette love. So look, I don't love Love is Blind. I have a lot of issues with that show, especially the fact they have all these like court cases out for cast members being poorly treated. And I don't think they have as many rules in place to keep the contestants safe. So like they're really allowed to drink as much as they want and they feed them a lot of alcohol. Whilst Love Island has really strict rules when it comes to drinking. They can only have 2 drinks per night in the UK, and in the US they only can have 1. And they have all these psychological screens. They've got therapy sessions that they have to support them throughout the time, welfare support after leaving the villa. So there's just a lot more support. And I think like that has always been the reason I've skewed towards that show too, is I'm like, oh, they support their contestants and it's not just throwing them in the deep end trying to get good TV. Back to The Bachelor though, but I think it's interesting kind of setting the scene for all the different shows out there. Obviously, The Bachelor is an incredibly successful franchise. They make a huge amount of money in ad revenue, and commercials cost $100,000 for 30 seconds, which I thought was fucking wild. But I do think with all these other dating shows, my theory is that people are wanting something more realistic. And the viewership of The Bachelor and Bachelorette has dropped significantly. When it premiered in 2002, it had 9.9 million viewers, which grew to 18 million by the end of the season. So 9.9 is good, but 18 million by the end of the season is wild. The recent seasons, though, recent episodes, they're getting about 2.4 million views per episode. And then obviously this, year, The Bachelorette was entirely canceled. And I'm not even going to get into that because I don't watch that Mormon show. And I also didn't really follow any of that story closely. But what I can gather is the franchise is in a rocky situation. And I think people are really sick of the formula. And just the lackluster love stories, the sloppy vetting, the shitty editing. So I think the franchise is in a bad place. And beyond that are my 3 issues that I have with it. So adding to the rest of the issues that people have with this show, I'm going to get into my top 3 reasons why I think Bachelor Nation is bullshit. Number 1, impossibly cringe editing. The editing of this show is wild, guys. I feel like I'm watching a Disney movie. The music is actually insane. I swear to God, it's like directly out of a Disney princess movie. And just the dates they go on, they're just so awkward. It's always these like very weird experiences too. And the season that I'm watching, which is the Gabby, Wendy, and Rachel, what's her last name again? I don't even know. I only care about Gabby. It's the Gabby, Wendy, and Rachel, whatever her last name is. Like, let's be real. I don't care about her. But the dates they go on. So right now, the show is clearly sponsored by Virgin Cruises, and they're on this big cruise ship, and they're going all throughout Europe. So they're going to Paris and Bruges and Amsterdam. And, they stop in these different cities, and every episode is like, the one-on-one date and the group date and everything. But the one-on-one dates are fucking what kills me. It's just so contrite. So they're walking through the streets of Paris in this one-on-one date, and it's raining, and they stop into this creperie. And then the owner of the creperie is like, "Oh, would you like to come in and make some crepes?" Like, that wasn't planned by the producer. Like, you just walk around Paris and someone offers for you to come into their kitchen and make crepes. No one's doing that, my friends. So they're like, "Oh my God, how crazy." Yeah, of course. So they go in, and then they're making the crepes. And the guy's like always standing behind the girl with whatever they're doing, like showing her how to do it. Like, dude, you've never made a crepe in your life. Like, you don't know what you're doing here either. Oh my God, I'm so good at this. It's like, yeah, no shit. You literally press a button and then the whatever it is comes out onto the pot, to the pan. Clearly, I've never made a crepe. And then it cooks. It's not that fucking difficult. I mean, clearly it is, but like the way this man who owns this creperie is doing all of the work for them. But it's just this like cringy little thing. And they're like, laughing. Me. And then all of a sudden, they're like hectically making out. And this creperie is so small. And all I can think of is the man who owns this just like standing right next to them. It is so unbelievably awkward and cringe. And I'm like, this just does not happen. And then the next one that really sent me is like they're in Amsterdam. And they're going to the tulip fields, and they were riding bikes, and both of them were like, "Oh, I haven't ridden a bike in years." I'm like, clearly you guys don't live in cities, because if you live in a city, you've probably been on a bike more recently. And her bike is just way too tall for her. Like, the bike seat is stupidly high. She can't even get on the bike. I'm like, this poor girl. Can someone just lower the bike seat for her? Like, why isn't she lowering it? Why isn't the guy she's on a date with thinking to lower it? Why is no one thinking to lower the seat? So she's trying to get on the bike without falling over. And it's so bad. And then they're like going through the tulip fields, and then they stop, and then they make out. And then without fail, they always end up in a hot tub. Why are we always in a hot tub? I've never seen so many hot tubs in my life. These hot tubs that just exist everywhere. And then beyond that, the lighting, man. The lighting. It's so bizarre. It's so lit that it's lit in like a weird way where it looks like cheap and kind of like cheesy and corny. And I can't tell if this is just because it's a season from 2022, but that was not that long ago. And I actually don't now, upon reflection, I'm making a call now. This is not a 2022 thing. I think this show has always been edited like that. It gives it just this weird, like, it's so... if you were to see a screen grab and not know anything about or like you've not known anything about that season, but you knew the show, you'd be like, oh, that's The Bachelor. They do it across all their shows, and I don't know what the choice is, but it just feels so fake, and I really, really don't like it. Whoever does this weird washed out coloring, the color grading, It is bad. And it's not like Love Island, which is bright and cheerful and colorful because it's fun and sexy and we're here for summer. I'm such a sucker for that show, guys. I'm so pumped the new season starts soon. We'll be talking about it a lot on here. So anyways, I have an issue with the color grading, and then there's the music and just the edits. And like, why is it that every date there's some candlelit dinner and then it's always just like, really hope he opens up, and it's them speaking to, or she opens up and they're speaking to, you know, the testimonials or whatever they call them. I don't think it's a testimonial, but you know what I mean. And it's just every single time they're expected, the person they're on a date with, to like share some sob story about their life that sometimes is like actually sad, and then a lot of times it's just not even a sob story. And then by the end, the person's like, oh my God, I think I really know them. And like, I'm definitely like, I'm falling for them because he or she told me this one tiny little story. And then usually it's followed by fireworks or some weird situation where there's a band that no one knows and they're like serenading them. It's just so awkward. And also who's styling this show, because all the outfits are horrific. I think they actually have to bring their own clothes, but still, someone needs to be helping these people because these outfits are bad. But generally, my point is just that the editing of this show is truly atrocious. It's so painful to watch. Yet, I've continued watching it because I find it incredibly entertaining. But in the same vein, I am never watching this again because, as I said, I'm really only doing this for Gabby Windy. That's all I care about. Now, my second issue with Bachelor Nation is the unrealistic depiction of love. This is the biggest one here. And as I mentioned earlier in the episode, the reason I find this show so problematic. I thought about it when I was younger, and I used to watch this show religiously in Australia. I had mentioned this. I really believed that's what it was like to find true love. And I think what the show is actually depicting is what Jay Shetty called the firework. These people are just in lust. And Jay Shetty has these different versions of love. There's the firework, the candle, and the mirror. I've brought this up before. The firework is really intense. It's like that intense feeling where it's just happening immediately and you're immediately in love. The candle moves a little slower where you still have this intensity and there's that fire behind it, but it always burns out. And then the mirror is the hardest one to stay in, but it is the most beneficial in the long run, where they reflect your biggest wounds back to you. So in this show, I think they are always reflecting the firework because it's fast, it's intense. There's not a lot of depth behind it. It's just based on quote unquote feeling. So they're falling for the idea of each other in these very romantic settings, which of course you're going to fall in love with someone with these very romantic settings. There's a lot of chemistry because they're all hot usually. And this is always going to burn out. There's no lasting foundation. So it's no surprise that all of this is happening when they're in the situation they're in. And what is fucking wild to me, though, is when you're the final person on The Bachelor or Bachelorette and they end up choosing you, guess how much time they actually spend together? I was just like, just pick a number. I know I can't hear you, but guess. I'm going to give you a second. Just guess. How much time really do you think? It's around 72 hours. Which is just fucking nuts. Just like, take a second. 72 hours and they're getting engaged, saying they're falling in love. Also keep in mind, 8 to 12 of those 72 hours, they're sleeping because they're in the fantasy suites. It's fucking nuts. It's fucking nuts. The whole season is shot over 6 to 9 weeks. So you have to think the lead is dating all these other people, and contestants probably only spend about 5% of their total time on the show actually with the lead. The only time that they spend together off camera is in the fantasy suites. So it's truly insanity to think that you would get engaged after spending 72 hours with someone. Imagine if your friend just disappeared for 72 hours, came back and was like, I'm going to get engaged to this guy I went on a date with and we just spent the last 72 hours together. I'd be like, we need to have an intervention. What is happening? But I think it feels longer for the viewers because you're watching it over a 2 to 3 month period. So you're seeing this relationship develop thinking there's way more than there is. And I know rationally you're not, but it feels that way as a viewer. But man, 72 hours, you're never really going to know someone. You literally don't know them at all. It is a needle in a haystack that these relationships would actually work. So they have this idea, and this is the kind of concept that I think this show pushes, is that love is so easy. As long as you open up about this one thing that you think happened to you that made you who you are, then everything's going to work out. And it's just such a disservice to show it like this because there's just so much more at play for an individual than this one moment. And you don't see the reality of who these people are, and you also don't see love as an action. It's not something that's a given. You have to work at love because it's not a feeling. It's something that you do. And this show does not show love as an action. It only portrays it as a feeling. So you have young people watching this show thinking that unless they have this super strong, immediate feeling with someone and they make them whole, then that is what they should be looking for. And I saw this a lot in the season I'm watching with one of the Bachelorettes. So there's 2 in this season, but Rachel. So her whole self-worth is tied to men wanting her. And when some men didn't want her and they wanted Gabby, she took that as the biggest slight and she was so upset and felt like she was worthless. And what was really interesting is the day before, Gabby had had a similar kind of, she was really upset. She had 3 men telling her in one night that they weren't here for her, they were here for Rachel. She was upset, but she got over it and quickly went and, focused on the guys that she did have for her. But it was really interesting seeing the same thing happen to Rachel the next day and her reaction, just not being able to get past it and really thinking like, why am I here? Why am I here? Why don't they like me? And Gabby even said to her, like, this happened to me too. I know what it's like. She's like, and Rachel couldn't even hear her saying that. And I just felt like you're not alone in this experience. You have this woman here who also went through it too. And I found it incredibly heartbreaking to see her just tying so much of her self-worth to these men who, didn't like her, and that's okay because she had 8 other guys who were into her. And I just thought it was so incredibly heartbreaking to watch because you're like, oh, this poor woman, I think she's tying so much of who she is to men showing interest in her. I think what scared me the most is just thinking as a young person when I watched this show, the ideals and values that it was teaching me about finding a partner and falling in love. And that made me really mad, and that this is what it's teaching young people. And I'm really glad that now as an adult, I can watch it with the rose-colored glasses taken off and, find it hilarious because it's so unrealistic. But I also wonder, is everyone looking at it like this? Because I'm not sure. I think a lot of people are, but I think younger people who watch this show likely are not. And, echoing on the unrealistic depiction of love is the fact that ultimately, and this is to my next point, the contestants are actually trauma bonding, not falling in love. So the next reason I find Bachelor Nation incredibly just awful is because I find the contestants are trauma bonding, not falling in love. I think the reason the feelings start to feel so strong and real is because a lot of these people are experiencing a version of Stockholm Syndrome. One of the former Bachelorettes, Gillian Harris, actually described her experience as, I quote, a really fabulous version of Stockholm Syndrome with fancy meals, hotels, and clothes. And she was saying that she was easily manipulated and forgot about her real life remarkably fast. There's some key markers on the show that kind of take several of the key psychological boxes of Stockholm Syndrome, or what I think might be better to call it trauma bonding, because Stockholm Syndrome is pretty intense. So I think trauma bonding is likely more what is happening. But really, there's isolation. So the contestants are totally isolated. They have no phones, no internet, no TV, no outside contact, which creates this prolonged isolation and increases the person's dependency on whoever is controlling that environment, which is the bachelor or the bachelorette. So think about it. You're there for 6 to 9 weeks if you end up at the very end. You've not had any contact with anyone else. All you have to think about is this person that you're dating, and they're your only connection to kind of the outside world. So then you also have dependency. So the Bachelor, Bachelorette is essentially the contestant's only source of positive social interaction, excitement, and validation. Otherwise, they're just confined with the other people on the show. And of course, they're getting social interaction from these other people, but they're not getting the excitement and validation. The attention they want is from this person that they think they're falling in love with. So I think when they go on these one-on-one dates, it feels even more enormous than it is. The third point, acts of kindness creating outsized emotional responses. So again, you could compare this to the one-on-one dates. After weeks of feeling like you want to be seen and be with this person, and then you get that one-on-one date, it feels huge. It feels enormous. It's this huge act of kindness. When in reality, someone asks you out on a date, you're not like losing your mind over it. Sure, you're excited, but you're not like, oh my God, that's the kindest thing they've ever done to me. And it's so fascinating to look at the show, now watch the show through this lens, because you see how they interview each of the individuals when they find out they're on the one-on-one date, and they're just like so ecstatic. And they're like, I just can't believe that they asked me. And it's this whole thing. And you're like, really? Like when you really start to pull it apart, it shows how absurd it is. And then the last piece is fear and uncertainty. So the contestants are in a constant threat of elimination, which creates a sense of anxiety that psychologists associate with trauma bonding. And when you feel attraction to your bachelor or bachelorette, but it's also masks in the element of fear of being eliminated, this can be interpreted as a strong attraction and bonding. So that racing heart, the emotional intensity of the show, they're so excited when really it's anxiety. It isn't love. They're feeling anxious because they're worried they're going to be kicked off. And look, this isn't everyone, but this is the majority of people that are like, oh my God, I think I'm falling for this person. It's like, no, that intensity that you're feeling is because of all these other situations that you're in where you're feeling emotionally dependent on this single person. And it's all mixed with anxiety. They really should have therapists on there, man. It's like crazy to me that they don't do that. So this idea that they are falling in love, I think, is a total lie and is a huge disservice to show people in the world that this is how you should fall in love. The reality of this is it's a toxic relationship filled with trauma bonding and unrealistic expectations and heightened chemistry and a firework relationship over something that's actually real and built to last. And it is my biggest qualms with this show. But as I start to wrap up, because I've spoken about it for a while, ultimately, I am glad that it seems like Bachelor Nation is going to need to change its tune, because it seems like other people are feeling frustrated by it. It has to start showing a more realistic depiction of love and relationships. And I think the entire premise needs to change in the way it's edited. People don't want this hyper-edited, unrealistic content formats anymore. They want real life. And you see that by the type of content that's really popular on social media right now, especially even more with the rise of AI-generated content. A lot of people are leaning towards authenticity. And I also think that's why shows like Love is Blind and Love Island tend to be more popular, because they're less edited and you get more authenticity. But what's funny to me is I don't think Bachelor Nation producers get that is what they need to change, because I think they think by bringing on a recognizable people to be the Bachelor or Bachelorette, that's going to do it. It'll bring in more viewership. And look, that's not an incorrect assumption, but it's a Band-Aid. Since the last Bachelorette season was canceled, I have seen so many comments online saying, make Sierra Miller or Maura Higgins the next Bachelorette. Sierra Miller is from Summer House and Maura Higgins was from Love Island and is her own personality. She's in, she was on Traitors. They're both their own personalities. These women are huge. And I saw both of them speak out and they were saying that they would never do that show. Both of them are very outspoken about wanting to focus on themselves and not needing a man to fulfill their life. And that is what these producers are missing. This idea that needing a husband or a wife is the ultimate goal to happiness. It's the key to being successful in life. And it's just all such bullshit. And bringing in a recognized face may increase your viewership for that season, but I think there's a cultural shift that is happening at large. And if they really want to revive the season, I think they need to redesign the entire version that they have of, quote unquote, this fantasy. And look, I've said this before. I want to get married. This is something Jeffrey and I discuss, but I am under no pretense that it is easy or a given, nor has it been easy or a given. And I also do not believe in the concept of the one. I've said it before and I've said it again. You choose who you want to be with and you work at it. It is not a given. And I know The Bachelor has its place. It's escapism, it's fun, and not everything needs to be as elevated as, say, Beef. Watch my episode from last week on my full review of season 2 of Beef for a more honest depiction of what love actually looks like. But I do think there's something worth calling out, which is that a generation of people, myself included, watching this show, and they felt absorbed in it and they took it as truth. And the truth it was teaching us is that love is a feeling that either hits or it doesn't, and that a ring is the finish line. Love is an action. It's a choice you make when it's hard and unglamorous and not just under the stars during a candlelit dinner in Paris or sitting in a hot tub. And I've learned from my own experiences that some connections, albeit feeling very strong, were often signs of past life shit that we had together with that person or anxiety. And next week, I'm actually going to dive into this even further because I think there's a lot behind past life connections and I would love to share with you some of my juicy stories. And I feel like it's something that I know personally. I've gotten love mixed up with that and anxiety and my own anxious attachment. And I just feel like I hope Bachelor Nation can work this shit out. Actually, do I? I actually don't hope at all. They've made enough money. They can just go, to be honest. But if they're smart, they will try and redefine what fantasy means to them. Anyways, guys, can't wait to speak to you next week and dive into past life connections. Tune in. Appreciate you all and enjoy your week. Thank you as always. Like and subscribe. You know the drill. Go to YouTube and Spotify. Love ya. Follow me on Instagram too. Bye.